Now, with this, we'll come to the last module of this particular session, where we talk about the different data governance solution that is provided in the Microsoft Purview platform. Okay. So far, we have only discussed concepts revolving around applying protection for your identities, user accounts, application, devices, and so on. Okay. What about applying some kind of protection on a data level? Like if I want to protect my emails or files, do I have some solutions that Microsoft is providing that will allow me to apply data level protection? Okay. The answer is yes, that can be done with the help of information protection policies and information governance policies, or also referred to as data governance solutions. Yeah. So let's explore that. Right. Now, as more and more people are moving to the cloud environment, the amount of data that an organization around the world are required to manage and care is staggering. Right? You can have tons and tons of data that you're dealing with day in and day out. Yeah. Now, on an average, companies are experiencing around 50% year over year growth of electronic data. And this number is just going to keep on rising as in when people are starting to adopt the cloud technologies. Right? And managing such a large volume of data can be really challenging, especially in today's information age when the data includes different kinds, such as you have email, document, video files, instant messaging, and so on. Yeah. So Microsoft Purview provides you an end-to-end compliance solution to meet all of your organizational data compliance needs. Yeah. So yeah, you can protect your sensitive data with the Microsoft Purview information protection service, which, as I mentioned, will help you apply data level protection. Okay. But one thing that you have to understand before implementing any kind of information protection or governance policy, the first step is to understand the different kind of data that you're dealing with, right? Because an organization can have personal data, right? It can also have sensitive data. It can have public data. It can have telemetry data, and so on. Right? So before you start designing any kind of information protection and governance policy, you first have to understand the kind of data that you're dealing with. Yeah. Once you're able to classify the data based on the severity uh, of the information that is present within it, now you start defining your information protection policies, right? So in that case, you can work with sensitivity labels, right? Sensitivity labels allow you to apply data level protection on files and emails. Yeah. So with the help of sensitivity labels, you can apply encryption so that the end user or the intended recipient is the only person who can access the content of this data. Not only that, but you can also control permission on what a person can do with this particular data. Okay. Such as maybe if it's an email, you can control whether the user can perform any activities like replying on the email or using the reply all function or having the ability to forward the email. All of these permissions can be controlled with the help of sensitivity labels. The good thing about sensitivity label is whatever protection settings that we are configuring are integrated or are applied to the metadata of the files and the email. Okay. So that means these protection settings will travel with the document. No matter what solution that we are using to open the content of this document. Now, you can also prevent data loss with the help of DLP policies. The concept of DLP policies are very easy to understand. If you want to prevent your users from sharing any kind of sensitive information from common communication platforms like Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, Teams, and so on, you can implement DLP policies that will prevent this kind of sharing of information. Yeah. So, for example, if someone is trying to share like maybe like credit card number using email. Okay, so in this case, they'll be using the Exchange Online platform. So you can implement a DLP policy in a way that will prevent this user from sharing this information outside the organization. Okay. So when someone tries to share this credit card number, the data classification service will detect the credit card number in this email. And since you have already designed a DLP policy around it, it will prevent this user from sending this email out, thus preventing any loss of data in your organization. Not only this, but you can, those were the concepts of information protection policy, but you can also implement data lifecycle management, right? Data lifecycle management is a concept that will allow you to retain your data for a certain period of time before it gets deleted. Yeah. For example, if you want to prevent your users from deleting any data that contains some sensitive information, and you want to prevent this kind of deletion, it could be like an accidental deletion or it could be intentional. Yeah. If you want to prevent this from happening, you can use various concepts of data lifecycle management, such as we have retention policies, we have retention labels, right? We have in place e-discovery hold, yeah, and much more. Yeah. That way, like for example, you can use a retention policy to retain the data for 3 years before it gets deleted. Now, this kind of retention requirements are a key for a lot of organization because because they have some legal and internal compliance requirements that force them to enforce these kind of restrictions. Yeah. For example, medical institutions out there are by law required to retain their patients' data for 10 years. Okay, this is for some medical institutions that are out there before it gets deleted. Yeah. Maybe your own company has a compliance requirement where they have to retain any of the project's data for 3 years before it gets deleted. So how do you prevent that from happening? You can do it with the help of retention policies, or you can do it with the help of retention labels. Right. And yeah, these policies can be targeted on across different Microsoft 365 workloads like Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, and Yammer. Now, one thing that you have to remember is you can use retention policies to target all of these workloads. but you can only use retention labels to apply retention settings on files and emails. Yeah. We cannot use retention labels to apply retention settings on messages or any other content that is not a file or an email. Now, apart from this, we have the Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management. Yeah. Now, the Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management is a compliance solution that helps you minimize internal risk. Yeah. It does this by enabling organization to detect, investigate, and act on any malicious or inadvertent activities that are being performed in the Microsoft 365 environment. Yeah. Now, as we talked about the cyber skill chain scenario, we understood there are two kinds of attackers. First is an external attacker, and the other one is a malicious insider. Yeah. And we understood that this is the kind of attacker that is very difficult to deal with because this is a person that is already in your organization and has access to a lot of, or maybe has access to a lot of resources, right? So in that case, insider risk management uses the full breadth of service and third-party indicators to help organizations quickly identify, triage, and act on risk activities. Yeah. So for this, you have to enable audit logs. That is one of the main prerequisite for you to have the ability to work with insider risk management policies. Yeah. And yeah, then you can create your own policies to detect various kinds of malicious activity. And you can also create policies to take automated actions if and when a malicious activity is detected. Now, apart from this, we have the Microsoft Purview e-discovery solutions. Yeah. So the Microsoft Purview e-discovery solutions have three different categories. We have the content search, we have the standard e-discovery, which was earlier referred to as core e-discovery. Then we have the premium e-discovery, which was earlier referred to as the advanced e-discovery search. Yeah. Now, depending upon your requirement, you can use an e-discovery solution to collect data from multiple resources in your organization, right? It could be platforms like Teams, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, and Exchange Online. Yeah. So you can search for the content across all of the Microsoft 365 platform. Once you search it, now you can export the content into a PST file if it's an email or a chat data, or you can export this into a zip file if it's a file or a document data. If you want to narrow down the scope of the search, you can use keyword queries and search conditions to narrow down the scope. Maybe let's say I want to collect all of the data that belongs to this particular keyword, which is invoice 219. So I can run this keyword query and all of my email data, file data, and chart data will be collected with this keyword or wherever this keyword is found. So depending upon what your requirement is, you can use the content search option. You can use the e-discovery standard search, premium search, if you want to, work with some of the advanced features. Yeah. There's also one more kind of e-discovery solution, which is referred to as a user data search, which is a very unique kind of search that you run to meet some of the GDPR requirements that your organization uh, might be abiding by. And yeah, guys, that was the final topic for the last module of this particular course. I'm sorry, for today's session. Yeah, like with all the other sessions that we had previously, Again, as you guys know, that we're going to go through a knowledge check section where we'll be answering some questions and where we'll be exploring certain questions and providing a best possible answer for it. Okay. Now, for those of you who were not able to join any of the previous sessions, let me explain it to you guys on how this will work. Yeah. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to display certain questions on the screen, and I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to think of the best possible answer. And then I'm going to reveal the answer and I'm going to discuss it with you on why that should be the correct answer. Yeah. So again, guys, this has to be a very interactive session. So I would request every one of you to actively participate in it. So yeah, with that being said, let's get started with the first question. All right, guys. So the first question is, which email protection feature in the Exchange Online Protection detects messages with spam or malware that previously went undetected or were delivered to your users' inboxes? Right. So over here, the correct answer is the 0-hour auto-purge service. This particular service helps you detect uh, uh, emails, that were undetected, and will help you to classify the email as spam or malware if it contains that kind of signature. Not only that, it will automatically move the email to your user's junk email folder if the email has not been opened. Okay. And as we talked about it, this particular activity is seamless. So the end user experience is not hampered at all when this kind of activity is performed. Okay. Not uh, the end user experience is not even hampered. Plus, there is no intervention required from the end user while this kind of activity is happening. Okay. So yeah, congratulations to everyone who was able to answer this correctly. Let's move on to the next question. All right, guys. So the next question is, what is the first step for implementing information protection and governance policies? Right. So we talked about this. The way that you create information protection and governance policy is first you identify what kind of data that you're dealing with. Okay. For example, if I don't want my users to be sharing any kind of credit card numbers using platforms like Exchange, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, or Teams, right? What I'll do is I'll create a DLP policy that will prevent this kind of sharing, right? But for me to create a DLP policy, I first have to understand what is the sensitive information that I'm trying to protect, right? For that, I have to classify a data as an sensitive information. In this case, it is credit card number. So the correct answer is know your data first. Okay. Understand what kind of data that you're dealing with and accordingly create an information protection and governance policy around it to protect or govern the data. Yeah. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, so the next question is, which of the below options are part of your e-discovery solutions in Microsoft Purview? Okay, so this should be an easy one because we talked about this. E-discovery includes all of the three different solutions that you see over here, which is content search, e-discovery standard, and e-discovery premium search. So the correct answer is all of the above. Now let's move on to the final question. All right, guys. So the final question is threat hunting tool that which is a threat hunting tool that lets you explore up to how many days of raw data. Yeah. So again, this should be an easy one. We talked about this that you can explore the raw data, that is up to 30 days. Okay. So in that case, you can run a KQL query to explore this data for different devices, apps, and users accounts that are affected in your organization.